would not vote for such a measure were it put to them in Parliament. We have gone already a long way to providing free school meals for primary 1, 2, 3. In the field of health, there is now a patients' rights bill. Prescription charges are being phased out in Scotland. It will be free for everyone to get prescription charges. This has been a great example of how all that's been said about the consensus in the Parliament, there is a consensus up to a point, and we do try to operate on that basis, slightly breaks down. It's an example of an area where probably we all do, or virtually all of us, want to see prescriptions free in Scotland. But some parties have to pretend that they don't, such as now the oppositionist mindset they've got themselves into, until it comes to the actual push when, of course, they don't stand in the way. We've got an 18-week waiting time guarantee. We've got the much talked about issue of police. We have 500 police now additional in Scotland who would not be there had there not been an SNP government. We've also got the other 500 being allowed for in the form of increased recruitment and retention. Much was mentioned about the nuclear issue and saying that, well, nuclear power stations wouldn't be coming to Scotland anyway, and that the existence of an anti-nuclear SNP government threatening to oppose planning applications had nothing to do with the fact that it seems that they're not coming here now. Well, I think really that's merely an illustration of the fact that if you vote for a government which actually is prepared to stand up for Scotland, certain things happen, and that's one of them. One of the things that's really distinctive about this government is that it's prepared to put the old, unanswered or unasked question of Scottish independence to the Scottish people. I say unasked because at no stage in our history have the people been asked for their view in a referendum. That's why there's a national conversation taking place which has involved enormous numbers of people in Scotland online and involved more people in meetings. It's why there's a growing consensus outside the Parliament that Scotland should be given that say to decide their own future. People have mentioned that the SNP won the election because it managed to raise money. Other parties have in the past raised money, at least from trade unions, so we're not unique in that respect. But what makes us different, I believe, and this is where the SNP may sound to you eccentric, is that we won the election, I believe, because we actually had a positive message and we actually believe in something. And that something is that Scotland should have all the rights of a normal nation. Scotland should exercise the same voice in the world that the other small countries of Europe have. I'm committed to that independence, but I'm also prepared to let people decide. I would just say in conclusion one thing, and that is this, that the government has, in its brief period to date in office, I think reliably been pushing forward a very positive agenda. And one thing which I think will determine the future of opposition parties is whether they too can come up with a positive agenda. But our parties now, about whom all we really know is that they are the anti-SNP party, they will find opposition a very cold place, as we did for 74 years. I advise them when it comes to recognising the benefits of life in an SNP government, find that positive voice themselves, and fight for their opposition for a very long time. Thank you.
Well, I thank all of our speakers for their concise contributions. It's now the time where we go to the audience, and I'm going to stand up because I can't see people at the back. Can I just ask that when people give questions or contributions, that ideally it's a question that everyone can deal with, everyone can bite into. So I'll start at the front with Laura, and I'll go to you later.
Do you want to stand or can I just stay here?
You can do what you want.
Because I just like to make a point of this thing which makes me particularly angry about the SNP actually. And it's this whole let's blame Westminster for everything whichever goes wrong. Scotland does have the capacity to actually have more money. You have the capacity to raise taxes, fair enough to a certain extent, but yet you don't. And why is that? Because it'll make the headlines look bad, which seems to be a general trend of the SNP overall, which can also be a benefit for other people. why you're so keen to scrap a graduate endowment fee, when there's other things within the student finance within Scotland which needs to be looked at. And as external convener of the Student Association, this is something which is really very close to my heart, and it's something which I want to ask each representative for each party here, what their actual stance is on the graduate endowment, because I've heard there's been a bit of a conflict as to who's supporting it and who's not supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to?
Oh, well, the first point about living in Westminster, one of the great benefits of independence is that you no longer have that excuse. One of the great benefits of independence is that you can't have a politics approach. Somebody, and I forget who it was, once said that with independence, England would lose a surly lodger and gain a friendly neighbour. I think it very well. As far as using tax tax change in the powers of the Parliament are concerned, well, with our plans to replace the council tax with a local income tax, we are actually proposing using that tax-bearing power as a part of that. Now, as regards the graduate endowment, as I've said, I'll give you a straight answer. I voted to abolish it in the first stage of the bill, and I will be doing so again. I think the graduate endowment is a tax on learning, and I want it abolished, and I voted to do so.
I think Alice will be very coy. He knows only too well the Surrey Neighbour quote was his leader, Alex Salmon, but that must be one of the first times on record that Alex Salmon quotes have not been vaunted from the rooftops by the stormtroopers. Anyway, in relation to the point of the Surrey Neighbours, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that the issue of our relationship with England we changed markedly as a result of independence anyway. I think somebody who's lived in Belgium for 5 years, I'm well aware of the surliness with which Germany is treated both by the Netherlands and by Belgians and Luxembourgers. So the notion that a small neighbour will suddenly take on a sunny disposition where it's independent is, I think, fanciful. In relation to the graduate endowment, like Alasadair, I have voted today to abolish it. And indeed, I think as a result of this, the coalition between Lord Liverpool and SNP is well going to be abolished. However, an amendment is to be tabled by my colleague Jeremy Purvis to ensure that as part of the abolition of the graduate endowment, the government does not end its commitment to provide student support, which I think was perhaps an unanticipated consequence of the way that the Minister will go about abolishing the endowment, but as a result of the amendment table with other debts and supported by the SNP, hopefully we can avoid that.
In relation to your first point about the battle that Alex Salmon and SNP government is trying to create with Westminster, this is part of this tactic, I think, to try and create a sort of standoff between the Parliament here in Edinburgh and Westminster, which is obviously very, very worrying from a unionist perspective. I think undermines people's confidence in the union. So I think it's something we need to watch very, very carefully. Increasingly, in the instance of the endowment bill, I think it's important that we just go back a few years and recall how this came about. Ahead of the 1999 elections, Labour were very clear. They introduced student fees. Liberal Democrats had campaigned to abolish them, and their deal breaker, the Liberal Democrats' deal breaker to go into coalition with Labour was to abolish student fees, we were told at the time. And the reality was we got the endowment put in place, which the Liberal Democrats tried to pretend was not a fee at all, which was completely ridiculous as anyone who tried to create no. Now, we didn't vote in favour of its abolition. We think by removing the student endowment, you're taking about £20 million out of education, which education needs. What we need to be doing is setting up a commission to review the education funding system in Scotland in its entirety, trying to work out, particularly looking at other examples from other countries, what is the best way to fund our universities so that they remain the leading universities across the world. Because unless we get proper funding to our further